The outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic challenged the government in many ways. So due to lockdown, normal life has come to standstill. However, the central government and the state government has adopted best strategies using technology to continue the public services in 700 plus districts while managing the pandemic and lockdown effectively. So, in an exclusive panel discussion with leaders of tomorrow, I would request Mohammad Ujale, Senior Special Correspondent, etgovernment.com, to connect with us again. Go ahead, please.
Hello and welcome to ET Government National Governance Virtual Summit. In this special panel discussion on Governance 4.0, we are going to focus on continuing the public service with innovation in times of pandemic. And I'm very happy that today I'm joined by very senior government official and industry expert. We have Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, Principal Secretary, Department of Information Technology, Government of Telangana. Ms. Mugdha Sinha, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology from Government of Rajasthan. Mr. Manoj Kumar Mishra, Secretary, Department of Electronics and IT, Government of Odisha. Mr. Santosh Kumar Mishra, Commissioner and Chief Executive Officer, Tamil Nadu E-Governance Agency, Government of Tamil Nadu. Ms. Neha Prakash, Special Secretary, Department of IT, Government of Uttar Pradesh. And we are also joined by Mr. Anish Dhawan, an IT expert with over 20 years of experience. He is currently serving as Director Solutions with Microsoft India. First, I'll begin with Ms. Mugdha, ma'am. Ma'am, can you share with us some of the recent technology-driven work done by your organization in the light of recent pandemic? And also, if you could share something around what were the key blockers and key enablers for you?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Ojale, and I very warmly welcome all our fellow panelists and the lovely audience who's going to be with us for this e-governance virtual summit. So I'm very happy to tell you that because of the fact that Government of Rajasthan and my Department of Science and Technology had seeded the seeds of a very strong and robust and resilient, perhaps I can also say a very anti-fragile back-end system of both research-based translational science and also technology backend, that we were able to make a very, very seamless transition when the first lockdown was announced on the 24th of March. And it is very important to keep this in mind, that we were in the last fag end of the financial year closing, which is something very, very important for the government. It was almost the last week. So we had our e-office systems in place through what is known as the Raj. We were in many ways pretty much Atmanirbhar on our own in-house developed technological backend, because I see we have people from Microsoft. So we did not even have to go in for any tender or anything. We made a seamless switch, and by 1st of April, we were already working with our various autonomous bodies and various kind of stakeholders that we have. My department stakeholders are basically all the districts and all the universities, institutions, and colleges. Using the benefit, because this is one of the COVID was one of the best time to be Secretary Science and Technology, because all solutions, be it in terms of the health pandemic or be it in terms of the impact of the pandemic on the economy and the social concerns around those, the solution for everything could be found or was to be found in science and technology. So while the office part was taken care of, working from home through the e-Rajka system that we had, we immediately started working, because we did not want to lose out on the new financial year beginning, because we had ended the last financial year with a very huge Vigyan Utsav, promised a lot of things to our stakeholders. So we did not want to lose out on time, because we understood that we were in the long haul. So the first thing that our satellite remote sensing application center at Jodhpur did, in participation or coordination with the various districts, was to start using the revenue maps that we had, which we were a project that we were doing for the settlement department, and then started using the information that became available regarding the people who were getting infected with the COVID, and we were able to map the areas using the GIS and the satellite data very, very accurately in the districts, so that the district collectors could use that technology-based, satellite-based data to declare containment zones, to segregate the zones into the green, orange, and red, also to be able to track the patients using that kind of a technological, very, very layered kind of input. So I think that system really helped because we were fully prepared, and the inputs had to come from the district. It was absolutely seamless. And I think this was much appreciated by the government also, because the curfew, it became very easy because, tracing a 50-kilometer border from the house of the patient could only be done through this kind of a system. So that was one. The second is that we were the only department, which was one of the first departments to jump on this tech platform and use through the various kind of systems that we had to do a lot of webinars. In fact, we in a way inspired many of the stakeholders, universities and colleges, and also the science students, and disseminated a lot of information through the Indian Academy of Sciences, through NASA, and through our patent center about this whole, myths that were traveling around COVID. So I think, in fact, we became one of the busiest office apart from the office of the Secretary Health and Medical Department. So I think it is one of the very, very good learning experiences of being in this department at this very, very difficult and tough times, and to be able to understand and appreciate the difference of being not just robust, but becoming and remaining for the long run anti-fragile.
Absolutely. Now I'll move to Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, who is Principal Secretary IT with. Can you also share with us some of technology-driven work done by state government, especially in the light of COVID-19 pandemic, and what have been the key?
Thank you, Mr. Ujale. We have had a very good, interesting conversation so far with other panelists. I'm very enlightened to hear their views also. And I'm also very happy to share with you that Telangana is today recognized as a state which for the last 5 years has been extremely technology focused. We have ensured that most of the government work in the state today is enabled with technology. And whatever we have been trying out since the last few years, that has come very, very handy for us during COVID. So I would like to give you 5 specific examples. First of all, we have utilized artificial intelligence and machine learning in a very innovative manner. And we have a very strong predictive analytical tool which helps our state. So for example, you may be aware, or some of the viewers may be aware, that Telangana was one of the first states where economic activities were restarted much ahead of other states. In fact, from the 30th of April itself, we permitted all the IT companies, all the industries to function without any restriction. So no restriction on the number of employees, no restrictions on the shift timings, and no restrictions of any kind. And we were very confident that this will not lead to any very uncontrollable levels of transmission of this virus, because we had this very strong predictive analytic tool with us. And with the help of this tool, we were able to kind of tell with reasonable amount of certainty that new cases are not going to come where our IT industry is located, or where our industrial parks are located, and so on and so forth. So this has been one example where we have used AI, ML, etc. in a very useful manner. Another very good example, see, during this COVID times, or during any kind of pandemic, lots of misinformation, lots of hearsay. I believe something which is not very scientifically valid. But how do you monitor what is being discussed, what is being talked about, what is the tendency of people to believe or disbelieve, etc. So again, we have been able to develop a very strong tool which kind of keeps track of all the social media posts and public conversations, etc., etc. And we do that kind of sentiment analysis. And that also tells us that, okay, if there is some kind of misinformation spreading in the people, let us correct it. Let us give them factually correct information. So again, that is a very useful analytical tool that we have used. We have, like many other states, and of course now the whole country is using Arogya Setu. So we also have a very useful app which is called T-COVID-19 app, which utilizes Bluetooth, which utilizes GPS, etc. So all the good features which Arogya Setu or other contact tracing apps have, we have that as well. We have developed it in-house in Telangana. We also have a very strong quarantine monitoring solution. Similarly, we have utilized facial recognition technology in a very innovative manner. Now, Hyderabad as a city is a city which has the largest number of surveillance cameras. The police have installed these cameras, but we have been able to install a layer of facial recognition software also over and above the surveillance platform. So tomorrow, if someone is moving out without wearing a mask, this camera can point out that this is a violation which is happening, and the check post will be alerted that someone is moving without a mask. Similarly, without following social distance, if too many people are moving in a car together or a vehicle together, all these violations can be traced. And the last technology intervention that I'll speak about is drones. A few other states have also done, as we heard, but we have also been very imaginative in utilizing drones. So drones have been used not just for surveillance, which has also been used in Telangana, but we have also used for disinfectants. And in a limited way, we have also utilized drones for by attaching a loudspeaker to it and taking it to areas. So typically in Hyderabad now, but earlier on the curfew timings were from 6 p.m. So curfew would start at 6. So typically at 5:30 in those places where too much of people are found loitering in the streets, a drone will appear from the sky with a loudspeaker and announcements will be made that in 30 minutes you must reach home. So useful technologies, and I feel very happy that these have given good results for our
I'll go to now Mr. Santosh Kumar Mishra. Sir, if you can also share what have been your enablers and blockers during these difficult times.
Thank you so much for having me here. And I have twice the pleasure because I have Mugdha there, a dear friend, and Anish, Manoj is there smiling. And hello, Neha. I have I'm seeing you for the first time. But it's a pleasure to be here. Very interesting times, I would say. There's a very cliche which says every cloud has a silver lining. And Corona also came along with a silver lining, I would say. What I noticed was the willingness to adopt technology, which we had to actually earlier struggle a lot with all the government departments. When we push use of e-office, or when we push use of remote meetings, when we pushed the concept of work from home, it was very difficult for, it was an uphill task to convince some of the very organizations in accepting these solutions and moving ahead. But thanks to Corona, actually this opposition melted away, and we had witnessed breaking of technology barriers, if you will, in the government at multiple levels. It was very interesting for me to see that High Court reached out to us, and in fact Anish was involved in assisting us in adopting technology. I mean, that was that got me really thinking that this is an opportunity to push through technological reforms, and not for the sake of technology. I think the technology makes things accessible, inclusive, and transparent. So for a country like ours, it is extremely important. I mean, the scale, when we talk about scale, and I speak at multiple forums, and when we talk about our numbers, so everybody in the audience, and particularly if they are foreign audience, they are in awe. How can you deal with such large numbers? And I think it is, in absence of technology, the government administration has been actually delivering brilliantly at such a scale. And I think if we leverage technology, I think this is going to really dramatically change. And I think it's a great sign that most of the governments, and I know Manoj, I interact with him very frequently, and their government, government of Maharashtra, government of Karnataka, government of Rajasthan, again, was one of the earliest adopters of blockchain. I don't know what the status is today, but they definitely were the harbingers of blockchain technology. So everybody is actually looking at how to use these emerging technologies, particularly the artificial intelligence, IoTs, blockchains, in improving public service delivery. And this is a time where, as I said, the challenge before us is making sure that these technological tools, even though they are very fancy, they are fraught with danger. They have limitations. We need to understand those limitations very, very clearly. Particularly with artificial intelligence, a very clear policy which makes sure that biases and discriminations don't creep into the system is very important. And if we are aware of the pitfalls and if we actually adopt the system after building a robust infrastructure in terms of policies for it on which it can float, I think there is huge opportunity ahead. In healthcare, in agriculture, in justice delivery. In fact, I was recently on one of the webinars where one of the Supreme Court judges, Justice Ravindra Bhatt, was there. And I was extremely happy to see that their openness. And one of the things he said was that large volume and low value cases can actually be one of those possible cases which can be delegated to AI assisted justice delivery. So if we start looking at those, I think there is a new, so when the computers came in, when the internet came in, you had factor of productivity improvement, transparency, efficiency, all that went up. This is going to be another significant milestone if we are able to do this. And I think Corona has, if nothing else, it has definitely brought in a technology culture in the government. So that's my opening remarks. And
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree with you that there is a technological acceptance level has gone up, which is really good. Now I'll move to Mr. Manoj Mishra, Secretary IT from Government of Odisha. Sir, if you could share your thoughts around what have been the key enablers for you, and if any challenge you faced during this tough time, and how did you enable, and how did you actually ensure business continuity for IT department?
Thank you so much, Ujjwala-ji. Very happy to be here on the platform of ET. And while this platform gives an opportunity to reach out and speak our story to the rest of the country and the rest of the world, it is the panelist gives this an opportunity for me to also learn about other states and companies like Microsoft, who has been at the forefront of the battle against COVID. I think Santosh, a good friend, is there. He very clearly mentioned the challenges before government in the first place. The first thing is that government has to stand up and show the way. When about 4 months back, the entire country was talking about business 4.0. Suddenly we are now talking about governance 4.0. So when things are going well, when the growth is fine, the market economics are doing well, we are talking about reforms on that side, and that was business 4.0. But when things go down, people look at government. And this is the first time in, at least in our past 15, 20 years of our services, where we are seeing a lot of respect to government agencies. Government agencies meaning the respect that Air India has today because of the Vande Bharat experience, or the Indian Railways, who have carried about close to about 3 million people, migrants back home. Nobody else can do what government can at times like this. So when the situation is such, we had to stand up and show as an example that we can work with Corona. The first thing that came to us is, how will the secretariat function? So this is exactly what Santosh Bhai just was telling. The ability of the government to adapt technology is the key. And fortunately, we are in a state which has been governed quite transparently in the last 20 years, and is one of those states. I think Rajasthan, Mugdha ma'am is there, was another who started revolutionizing the file system. So currently, we don't have a physical file, which file is synonymous with government working. but we don't have any. We work on completely on the computerized system. So immediately created about 2000 VPNs, and we enabled 43 departments to function from home. And that became an enabler when it came out in the news. People started believing, whether the IT industry, whether the service industry, that it is possible government can work from home, we also can work from home. Certainly it helped that the government of India came out with easing of norms, changing the rules for work from home, and it became enablers. But I believe, to stick to the question that was asked to me, government is the enabler. So we cannot look at government being anything other than enabler. So we had to stand up as an example. We stood, and then everybody could see and could follow. But it is not that it doesn't have challenges. It has challenges. Challenges are more to do with the infrastructure that the states have, the country has as a whole. If we do work from home, or we make our system platform e-ready for schools and colleges, can each of our students access that? So that was a question that just by laying the optical fibers, having the e-chopals or Wi-Fi at the gram panchayats or villages, perhaps is not enough. We are seeing for the first time that while COVID probably has been one of the biggest shots in the arm for technology companies and technology departments, whether it is science and tech, electronics and IT, we while basking in the glory that we now are getting, at the same time, it throws a very, very serious challenge. Is that the digital divide that exists in the country, will it not get widened? When some people have access to such platforms, some people do not. What happens to the school system, which is the vernacular school mediums? Are they as ready as the public schools? So these are the blockers. So this is something where government is quite seriously thinking in terms of ironing out the issues and then bringing everybody together. There's no other way but to adopt technology and making technology available to each one. That's the key.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll move to Ms. Neha Prakash. Ma'am, if you could also share your experience, what have been the key enabler for you in IT department? I'm sure that UP being one of the biggest state, a lot of work has been done, and for you, even past 2 months would have been challenging. So, what have been your experience and what have been your challenges?
Thank you, Jali ji. Very good evening to all the esteemed panelists and my senior colleagues. So we see that this crisis is very unprecedented, and the sheer novelty of this crisis makes all our efforts very experimental in nature. So different governments are following different approaches, and we all are in a learning phase. We are learning by trial and error. And the peculiar thing about this crisis is that it is equalizing in nature. It does not distinguish between the rich and the poor. So, as much as it is possible for the people in Dharavi to get a corona infection, it is the same for any high business class flyer. Also, this crisis has come at a time when there is so much information sharing on a real time basis. The last time we saw something of a similar nature was the SARS epidemic. But even at that time, we did not see all these data being shared about the number of people infected and the number of deaths on such a real time basis. So that makes us very involved in this COVID 19 crisis. As you already said, UP is a huge and diverse state, and the sheer scale of the government efforts can be gauged from the fact that it is the most populous state of India, and we have to cater to the needs of approximately 200 million inhabitants. UP is a nation in itself. So, what some nations are doing, their level of planning is, our scale is at the same level. So, we are almost planning at a national level. And along with the residents, the government also has the responsibility of the well-being of people from Uttar Pradesh residing or stuck in other states. And after independence, I think this is the first time an epidemic has been declared in Uttar Pradesh. Technology has been an enabler in this crisis, and some of these technology initiatives were in place even before the crisis. So we had the e-district, which was an interface between the government and the citizens, and which catered to the online service delivery of 220 applications of 34 departments. So approximately 33 lakh users per month have been using this e-district service even before the crisis. So in the times of crisis, it is very helpful because people can access all these services virtually. And this customer satisfaction, this has been a key enabler in all these technology initiatives to reach to the common man and for their awareness. And technology also does not have to be very complicated all the time, because one of the initiatives which has been very helpful during this COVID-19 crisis is our CM helpline, which is a simple IVRS based technology. It's a toll free number 1076. And earlier, this toll free number was being used for grievance redressal, where people could call up this number and they could register their complaints, suggestions, or a feedback. And in the times of this COVID crisis, we are using this CM helpline for outbound calls. So we have made lakhs of calls to Gram Pradhans, to ward members, to ASHA workers, Lekpals. And it is very important to educate these people because they are the government level functionary at the village level. So Nigrani Samitis have been set up and they have been informed about all the protocols to be followed. And wherever there is a case of migrant workers returning to a village, so we call them through the CM helpline and we ask them about whether they're exhibiting any symptoms or not. And then we educate them about the proper protocol to be followed. So this CM helpline has been very effective in reaching out to the common people who do not have access to smartphone. People might have access only to simple feature phones where they cannot download all these apps and they cannot visit websites. So CM helpline has been a very useful tool in reaching out to everyone. And this integrated grievance redressal system backbone, we have integrated it with Google Maps to create a visual map of the density of complaints and also to pin the epicenter of corona hotspots, which enables us to draw the perimeters of containment zones. Now, we already had the state data center in place, which is a tier 2 data center, and it hosts 250 services of 61 departments. So as IT has been declared to be an emergency service, the data center has been up and it has been providing shared and co-location facilities. We also have the potential of working through e-office, and because we have to avoid social distancing and there are some protocols which have to be followed. So e-office is also serving its purpose. Moreover,
Right.
the state has solved the migrant crisis in a very novel way because we have set up a migration mission where we are mapping the skills of all these migrants, and our aim is to provide them with employment in the state
Right.
based on their skills. So there has been a lot of migrants returning to UP, and we have completed their skill mapping. So and also DBT schemes. So we have done DBT in the accounts of construction workers, laborers, migrants, and we have also ensured that food security is taken care of because in these times many people they have lost their job or they are temporarily out of their jobs. So those people who did not have ration cards, we have made their ration cards and we have ensured that everyone has access to food. And we have also created some portals like the Home Delivery Supply Mitra portal and the Annapurna portal. So in the Home Delivery Supply Mitra portal, it's about groceries and daily use items which you can get online. You can log into the portal and there you have the names and addresses of all the people who are supplying these items. And the Annapurna portal is more about the cooked food part.
Right.
We are also running community kitchens, and all these community kitchens are being centrally monitored through CCTV. And all the 52 medical colleges in the state and the hospital, the patients, the doctors, everyone is being monitored centrally. So I'll say that technology has been a real enabler in handling this crisis.
Right. One, thank you for telling us the kind of work that is being done by the government of Uttar Pradesh. Now I'll move to Mr. Anish. Anish, you have heard that Mugdha ma'am spoke about GIS primarily enabling a lot of things. Mr. Santosh actually said that there is a willingness to learn, and we also need to ensure that the limitation of AI and the ethics issue around AI, that data should not be biased. The way you process data, you need to actually eliminate the bias element from that. And Mr. Manoj Mishra, he spoke about the accessibility. Okay, technology is fine, but do you have the connectivity to the panchayat level, to the villages level, to ensure that services that you have online, you are able to take down to them. So there are some green shoots, and then there are some blockers also. So what are your views on blockers? Do you have any suggestion around that?
Yeah, I'll build on what Santosh ji said, that every cloud has a silver lining. Just the difference being that this time cloud as well as silver lining both have come in together, right? And in literal sense, when I say cloud, I meant cloud as a technology, right? It's getting adopted. Now, when I look at the multiple engagements that we've been having across government agencies, and they're all in very different areas. Some are replicated, but every government has their own way of, or every state government and central departments have been looking at very innovative ways on how they address different levels of challenges. So if I was to just divide the challenges that we've witnessed all across in our engagements with Manoj ji, Santosh ji, I haven't had the option of working with Mugna ma'am and Neha ji, right? But there are clearly two very broad categories in today's times. One is, how do we handle this pandemic that's going on, which is health related, right? So how do we contain this, and the entire IT support or the technology support that goes around this, right? Then the second part is the actual government functioning and the delivery. Now, if you look at the first one, right, that's got so much of technology support coming in, not just from us. And let me just not talk from a Microsoft perspective. I'm talking about the entire IT community perspective. That there's so much of technologies that's gone into the first section as of now. And a lot of people are learning on the way as well, right? Because this is the first time we've entered in a situation like this. And it's been a reset for a lot of things, not just technology adoption per se. Now, in that, we have what we popularly call a corona loop, right? So that's basically a journey from discovery, right, to the point of exit of a person, and then monitoring how does that person go back to work. So in that, you will see there is one view that you will take from a citizen's perspective. How do I experience this entire journey? Do I get the services on the time? And then you suddenly take the second side of the government side, then you will realize that you've got so much to do. You just don't have to discover, track, monitor, contain, take care, sanitize, make them well and go out. But you've also got to, like Neha ji was talking about, you need to have a very robust command and control center, which can actually do a bit of predictive analysis for you on where and how this pandemic might spread. A lot of correlation and artificial intelligence goes behind it, so that you could proactively take actions and not just react to containment zones. Now, that is one area of science within itself where we continue to engage with our different solutions. And there are many partners who are working. And it is not just us, it is Amazon, and there are many others that come in. Then the second portion, which is enabling the government services. Now, you've got a responsibility, right, towards the citizens as well. Now, for that, the government department per se should function. So for that to function, how do we enable anytime, anywhere access to the applications that are required for you to be functional? We encountered a lot of challenges because a lot of organizations had not even thought of similar situations. So setting up a complete secure remote work environment for them was a challenge. Some of them, I would say, brilliantly stood up, and they were. I haven't seen a faster adoption of a service. And a case in point could be the reference that Santoshji said about Madras High Court, for example, right? It's just matter of a month and a half, and I wouldn't shy from saying that from an organization which was not that great adopter of a technology today is looking at driving hearings and proceedings remotely for themselves. And it's not just them. They started, and then Kolkata picked up, then Mumbai, then MP, and then Supreme Court. Everybody kind of picked it up very fast. Now, one is enabling your core functionality to function as a government. Then there are a lot of places where a lot of government agencies come together to deliver a particular service. Security, for example, it is not just about only the police department. Multiple agencies come together. So how do we empower a cross-agency collaboration between organizations who were used to doing that physically initially, but in the lockdown period, how do we do that? That was the second area that we got to work with. And the third area was obviously how do we continue to deliver the trusted, secure services for us as people. How do we consume that? So broadly, if you see the two sections, broad section, and then they break up into multiple threads below on different areas that we work with.
Right.
The biggest challenge I get to see, the biggest challenges that I get to see is only, if I may say, how should I put it, is the willingness of leaders to adopt technology, right? Wherever there we had leaders who were ready to step up and say that this is the time to go ahead and take a bold risk, we've seen the organizations work faster than possibly any other commercial organization that I have worked with. I mean, right from the point they were chasing us, right? We consider ourselves to be fairly agile, but they were chasing us that why is this feature not available? I was very pleasantly surprised, both sides, as a citizen as well as a technology service provider, on the way I saw the adoption. But blockers will continue to be there, and there are a lot of technologies that will be there. So specific blockers, when they come across, I will be more than happy to answer this.
Right. So I'll come back to Mr. Ranjan again, and this is around the cloud and cyber security, especially during the pandemic time. Majority of government organization and large enterprise, they all ensuring that work from home infrastructure is ready, and most of them have cloud beneath as a IT infrastructure. But whenever you talk to any government organization, there is always a question. So what is your view on cyber security, especially for the cloud, especially at a time when large number of people are depending on cloud technology?
Yes, so I fully agree with you that it is a very important concern. In fact, in Hyderabad, when in March, that is on 22nd March, when the country decided to go for a prolonged lockdown, it became very important for us to help the IT industry transition very, very efficiently, seamlessly into this work from home situation. And again, what we did in Hyderabad is today counted as one of the best case studies for the whole country. In fact, NASSCOM,
right,
which is the industry body, has praised the efforts made by the government, the police, the private companies themselves, the associations, in helping in this transition. So within a matter of 3 to 4 days, practically 80% of the IT industry workforce was successfully working from home, which is, in my opinion, a Herculean achievement. But what you are saying, Mr. Ojale, is also very true, that when everyone is working from home, obviously the kind of security protection that you enjoy in your office, when there are multiple firewalls and identity management software and so on and so forth, some of those protections are diluted when you work from home. So 3 things which we did. One is that in Hyderabad, we have a center of excellence on cyber security. We have set it up about 1.5 years ago in partnership with the Data Security Council of India. So already for the last 1.5 years, we have been running lots of programs for IT companies, for professionals, for students, etc. So we intensified, and I remember in the month of March and April, 1st of April, we have almost 10 events, so to say, in which we guided most of the IT employees and their companies on what kind of security threats which are there. And also the companies were given some products and solutions which have been developed, which can immediately protect your personal system, your home computer, and so on and so forth. So I'm again very happy that now that March, April and all are behind us, we can look back and say with a reasonable amount of confidence that there were no cybersecurity incidents of any ransomware or any other kind of threat which any of the IT companies or IT professionals faced here. So the steps that we took, they turned out to be very, very handy. And of course, we also work with all the telecom providers to enhance their broadband capacities, offer cloud services, etc., etc. So things, I mean, our infrastructure has been able to cope up with the kind of demand which work from home scenario has suddenly placed. And this is something which no one had thought of before. So in a very unprepared kind of a moment, we were able to eventually deliver and come out of it with lots of satisfaction and good results.
Absolutely. I'll now move to Mugdha, ma'am. Ma'am, what we have seen in recent past is that there is a lot of repurposing of IT infrastructure. We spoke about this in webinar earlier. And the key element of, IT infra, compute, storage, and networking. And for enabling work from home, there is a lot of adoption of cloud technology. I mean, this is pervasive that cloud is, but cloud also comes with a lot of challenge, which is something around security and all. So what are your views around that, and how actually are you addressing that?
Okay, that's a very relevant question actually, because governments are usually collectors of not just revenue but also huge amount of information. So while we are very good at collection, and even collation, I would say to some extent, but when it comes to storage, when it comes to archiving that data, which can be then retrieved at the click of a button in a useful sense, and also, if I might add here, not just collation, compilation, collection, and storage, archiving, and retrieval, but also why are we doing all this data collection if we are not using this data and making this data speak to us and help us in what I would like to call evidence-based policy making for desired outcomes. So basically the whole data science, making data predictable, making data help us analyze our past actions and to suggest what needs to be done in the future, for whom, how and why. So very recent kind. So that was not happening. So if I just give you one small example, because I think Neha also mentioned about the migrant and the food, the PDS system. If I just give you an example from my previous assignment as Secretary Food, we did in Rajasthan for the first time a whole lot of data science, use data analytics to allow that food data, because Rajasthan has a population of about 68 million and the beneficiaries under the National Food Security Act alone amounts to about 50 million people, which is almost 70% of the population of Rajasthan, which is dependent on the PDS ration. So all that data was churned through various layers, the data analytics using SAS and Tableau and whatnot, and we used the pre-established channels of NIC to deliver to us. So it became when the crisis struck. So see, Sun Tzu always, the Chinese scholar, he who wrote The Art of War, he says, see, work hard in the times of war so you are better prepared in times of peace. So I am very happy that whatever little work that we did in my tenure in the Department of Food came in very handy, especially when Government of India announced one nation, one ration, because we'd already done what is called the intra-state and inter-state, alignment for people who could take a ration between districts, who stayed in one district, wanted to lift the ration from different district, or who, say, for example, stayed in a district in Rajasthan in up north in Ganganagar and wanted to take ration from a neighboring district in Haryana, say, for example, Hisar or Bhatinda. So that was very much possible. Apart from that, I think not just cloud. See, Maharashtra government is probably the only government which has a policy on cloud. Rajasthan government wants to, will be working on cloud. But we already have, see, I was in RICO and RICO had invested about 8 crore rupees in setting up the state data center. So we already have a data center which does all the archiving, and it's a very centralized system which does all the archiving for all departments, and we have one portal through which all departments enter to use the services of the government of Rajasthan provided through the various departments. We had also started what is called the Bhamasha scheme, which is very similar to collation of data on a state-based number akin to the Aadhaar card which you have, and so we have been using it very effectively in the state governments for various departments. What we now need to do is all state governments need to do convergence, because all state departments have been working in silos. Like, for example, the education department had only a very limited idea of what was required from the family from the point of view of the education requirements of the children in the family, right? But they did not have the other requirements, say, for example, the social welfare requirements of their family. So that kind of integration and convergence will be required. Also, when you talk of infrastructure, the new infrastructure which is added to the physical infrastructure of, say, the optical fibers, because see, without good connectivity, without good speed, without a stable connection, and also look at the remote areas, even in the food department, we realized there were a lot of remote areas which could not do biometric lifting of ration, and we had to think different ways of bringing to them the Wi-Fi through different what we call temporary structures. So that is one thing. The other new infrastructure which is got added and will become very, very important in times to come in terms of infrastructure, especially for disaster, will be the drones. So we in Rajasthan are working with the Drone Federation of India, because the Civil Aviation Ministry of the Government of India has put up certain guidelines. And because the corona was followed by the locust attack in Rajasthan, and we had to use drones to get the locust in control. So I think every day with incremental change in technology, new things are getting added to the bouquet of the tech world. And I think faster are, turnaround times in trying to adopt to technology. So I think a three-pronged effort. One is, of course, the hardware part, the physical infrastructure, I think, as Manojji mentioned. The second part is the software, because that is where the maximum, your backend algorithms are changing so fast. A lot of flexibility in terms of upgradation, upscaling, replication, avoiding what I like to say is the reinvention of the wheel, because we can't have the same wine, old wine in new bottles labeled differently. We need to have new processes, new products, and also technology, very much like science, has to be translational. It has to solve a core problem of society. Otherwise, it is just technology and it is not useful, at least in the government system of governance.
Right.
The other thing is that, when we are talking of physical infrastructure, the people will become very important, apart from the physical and the software that goes with it. Security, privacy concerns, cyber issues, policing in the tech world, the Jamtara experiences, because a lot of exchange will happen. So I think training of not just the civil servants, because we cannot outsource everything, because governance has, some kind of policy making will need to be in the government. So, training of people across the hierarchy, both the vertical and the horizontal hierarchies in the government, and also some kind of training of the general public, because we cannot expect to crowdsource information, expect the citizens to be demanders, expect our stakeholders to be policy advocates, unless we train them equally. And this has to be a relationship between two equals, where the civil servants are equally trained, as are the civil society at large, for whom we are providing this kind of functioning. And I think the and I will end with this, one very important thing that happened in Rajasthan, because Rajasthan has a center for good governance, which for the last, I think, 20 years of my own service in the state, I've realized has been totally focused on online redressal of grievances. And that is something that stood us, as also Neha mentioned, in good stead, because we were dealing with about 50 lakh migrants of Rajasthan origin who were stranded across various states of the country and needed some kind of help. So I think that portal, the e-grievance portal of the government of Rajasthan, which we know as Sampark, with the helpline number of 181, that really came in very, very handy in reaching out to people. What technology has done is that it has increased the efficiency, effectiveness, and the outreach of the government. So governments are now able to speak to people through Facebook Lives, through Instagram Lives, through the various pages that the political executive or even the executive has. And that kind of an outreach is something that we have never seen before in the physical world. In fact, our webinars are attended much better. Our talks are attended much better. The outreach is phenomenal. But despite all that, I think we have to be very, very mindful of the tyranny of technology and the underbelly of technology. Because while technology can be a tool, it depends on whose hand that tool falls and what and who is using that tool for what purpose. So that we have it comes very easy to be awed by technology for all what the technology is able to do for us. But I think we need to be a little careful of how we are utilizing this technology and for what reason, because ultimately with all that data collection, leakages of data, surveillance of data for various purposes, all these are attendant things which accompany data. So as Santosh mentioned, that policies is something, how we build and design our policy architecture will ensure that we are able to use the tech for the beneficial part of good governance and smart governance in society.
Absolutely. We are in the vague end of this panel discussion. So I'll quickly move to Mr. Santosh Mishra and request you to quickly, maybe in 30-40 seconds, if you can actually share, according to you, what would be the two key priority down the line in 6 months for your organization? And what should be the key priority for any government organization down the line in 6 months?
I think for us, priorities are kind of laid out already. So containment of Corona is the highest priority right now. And of course, we are the backbone for information required for the government to fight this. So we provide all the GIS support. We provide all the data analytics and trend analysis support. We provide all the decision-making support to the government and particularly to the health department. So for our next 6 months, I don't see Corona going away. So I think we will be focused and fighting this only.
Right. Mr. Manoj Mishra, if you could add, because you spoke around accessibility and some work has gone in Odisha around laying down the fiber optics also. So if you could actually tell us something around that.
If you're looking at 6 months down the line, I cannot disagree with what Santosh said. We have to live with Corona. So I think the best thing we can hope for is come out live and come out kicking after the Corona goes.
Right.
But I personally look at my own department, like Mugdha ma'am spoke so eloquently on this, that I look at myself as a vendor, which I think Anishji will agree more. I am a vendor to the government. So my role, I cannot define. So today the requirement is of the health department. If they want to track and trace, so I have to enable that to happen. If they want decision support system in terms of a dashboard where analytics and data science are there, I have to provide for that. Tomorrow things will change. Tomorrow things will change to transport department asking for driver learner licenses provided on the ground with social distancing. Can technology come in there? So I think we have to look at each government business processes and try to reinvent by some means by which we can live with Corona if Corona is not going away so soon. So I think we have to look at ourselves as the provider, as a vendor, to enable the government and public to remain functional and be productive.
Right. Absolutely. Neha, if you could add something from your point of view, what would be your key priorities? I mean, the IT department priorities. Corona is very common. Obviously, it's not going anywhere. Anything else would you like to add?
Yeah, so most of the initiatives will be directed towards mitigation of the impact of corona and for the continuation of public services. But if you are talking about the IT and electronics department, so one thing which we are particularly interested in is enhancing our cyber security systems, because just to have a look at the scale of the cyber attacks which are happening these days, and the evolution of all these cyber attacks in the state data center itself. Since February till date, there have been 83 crore malicious hits. So in the times of corona, the cyber attacks have also increased a lot. And cyber attacks are not limited only to hacking. There are various evolved kinds of attacks, like apart from the basic phishing attacks, there are new attacks, distributed denial of service attacks, and password attacks. So, with the evolution of all these latest technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning, blockchain, the cyber criminals are also evolving. And to secure all these e-governance projects, we have to have all the best information security practices in place. So this cyber security, the model can be summed up in the CIA triad, which means that all the information has to fit into the CIA triad, which stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So cybersecurity is one area which IT department is looking forward to in
Absolutely,
increasing its
absolutely.
effectiveness.
Right. And now I'll move to Anish. Anish, I mean, you know, your organization is one of the biggest cloud service provider. So I think this is quite apt to ask you, what do you think of cyber security on cloud? And we are in the fag end of panel discussion, so I'll request you to make it short.
Definitely. So I will just build on what Neha ji talked about. I mean, what Neha said is very relevant. The number of cyber attacks have grown multifold because the cyber criminals are aware that a lot of organizations have been caught unaware. So a lot of remote working right now is not secure enough the way it should be, right? So there are multiple things that people end up doing, but uh, what what a lot of on-premise organizations have also come to realize, where the example I will take is what Neha just took of their state data center getting also attacked, right? Is that the evolution of the speed at which they are attacking, the evolution of the technology being used, whether it is a spray attack, whether it is a targeted phishing attack, or the level of tech that has gone, that is going into this, it's a science within itself now. So what happens is that to counter this, you need to have a same or a similar amount of technology on your end, which many a times becomes very difficult to have only on premise. And because this gets powered by artificial intelligence, the attacks and the defense both get powered by artificial intelligence now. So Microsoft, I will give you an example. Microsoft has built something called the intelligent security graph, right, in the backend. If you have some time, do browse about it and you will get to see the amount of input that goes into it. Being the largest cloud service providers, imagine our services get attacked the most as of now, right? From a cyber security perspective. And more so we give, when we talk to our customers, we give SLAs saying that, okay, if this service doesn't run for you for this particular amount of time or goes down for a certain amount of time, this is the amount of credit that we will give back to you. So there is a huge economic implication, commercial implication on our services going down as well. Now, that is the reason that we build this intelligent security graph, because we continue to get the different signs from an attack perspective, and we are able to analyze that together using machine learning, and then we put that into an intelligent security graph, which then gives me a predictive analysis. Okay, if these parameters have changed for you, this probably is going to be the next attack that this customer of yours which is going to have. So what I would say is that from a cybersecurity perspective, in fact, customers who have been on our cloud services now actually find this security to be one of the biggest reasons, not just scalability, but security to be one of the biggest reasons to remain on cloud, because the level of technology required for you to secure yourself will be impossible to get in one place. While people like us and other cloud service providers, because we serve so many customers, for the scale we have, we are able to get that technology in, and the scale allows us to be aware of what's happening elsewhere. I mean, something happens in Japan or Israel, I'm able to secure Indian customers before somebody comes and attacks here. So there are many things I can go really on and on from a cybersecurity perspective, but cloud should be one of the reasons that you should be adopting if you want cybersecurity for yourself.
Right, right. Thank you for your views. I think with this, we come to the conclusion of this panel discussion, and we have some clarity around, there is focus on an innovative technology like GIS. There is a willingness to learn, and, the decision-making process has quickened in pandemic time. AI, we have to focus on ethics part also, and it should not be biased. Then Mr. Manoj Mishra also accessibility, which is basic but very key. And also Neha mentioned about cybersecurity, and you elaborated, Anish elaborated how important it is and how cloud could be a great enabler for ensuring cybersecurity. Thank you so much. Thank you all of you for being such a wonderful panelist. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Newer technologies are taking the market by storm, and people are getting used to them in no time. Above all, technological advancement has led to the growth and development of our nation. To showcase how Microsoft is contributing to this growth, we have with us Anish Dhawan, Director, Solution Sales, Microsoft, to share his thoughts.
It's been a while since we moved to remote work, and the fight against COVID-19 has only intensified, with many states, districts, and municipalities having moved to self-isolation and quarantine. Today, we are not going to focus on the crisis, as we are all living it together. Rather, we would like to focus on what we are seeing, what we anticipate will happen, and what we propose to do together to get through it today and prepare for what comes tomorrow. This is the new reality, new ways of working, living, and interacting. And this is affecting individuals, families, organizations of all sizes, and citizens' relationship with government and their municipalities. There are significant changes, some directly COVID-19 related, and some are more systemic and permanent in nature as we emerge stronger and look to reboot our economy going forward. To put it simply, we now live in a world of remote everything. And at Microsoft, our role is clear. It is our mission to enable every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. With Modern Workplace, we do this by building tools that help our customers keep their businesses moving through the COVID-19 crisis and beyond. In last 40 days, we have 40 plus large public sector organizations who have been actively evaluating our remote collaboration solution called Teams for about 138,000 users to communicate and run their operations. While we will talk about Teams later today, we also have partnered with National Informatics Center, also called NIC, wherein after an enormous One Microsoft effort, we are on path to train 200 head of departments on Teams usage and administration. These HODs are responsible for driving IT in your departments across India. A special help desk for NIC has also been set up, backed with dedicated support to ensure a seamless experience. We are proud to work with them. Today, I'm going to share how we in partnership can not only navigate this crisis, this economic downturn it's created, but also address rebuilding new working models for future. Working in government, you strive every day to deliver value to society. While we are in safely locked down areas, you continue to battle for us in field. Salute to each one of you. Leaders everywhere are looking for breakthrough ways of expanding access to education, improving healthcare, and keeping their people safe and secure. Technology today allows overcoming these challenges and meet demands of increased expectations with fewer resources to dedicate to these essential challenges. Many directors that I get to talk to share these challenges today. In health systems, our current state highlights tremendous opportunity in process improvement. Hospitals, public health departments, municipalities, and their community partners need to work collaboratively to solve current health problems. We are seeing this in certain parts of the country while others are in process of catching up. Court systems. They need to expedite their case proceedings in time of isolation and quarantines. And we do see that some of them have already taken bold steps of using digital in hearing and proceedings, while others are in process of adopting the same. As we talk, we are actively engaged with them in enabling these scenarios and have worldwide best practices on digital judiciary to share us citizens. Emergency operation teams need to respond quickly when the incident occurs. The ability to access information and connect with right people from field can impact response times and can make a big difference in saving lives. Modern technology is causing a shift in societal behavior, and citizens are expecting their governments to adapt to this change in how we interact with community. Programs and policy implementation require communication and coordination across departments, agencies, and jurisdictions, and we face several challenges when you attempt to work collaboratively today. Physical and virtual boundaries between departments makes remote communication and collaboration cumbersome. We also need to address the work styles of diverse multi-generational workforce to serve citizen services better. The different skills and needs of workforce present challenges such as staying connected when you are working remotely or in the field, whether you're dealing with criminal data, tax documents, or personal or public information. Managing government sensitive information also makes you a prime target for security threats, whether from nation states, organized crimes, or even internal leaks. Do you have the wherewithal to coordinate with the right people without compromising security of sensitive information? Microsoft has a set of tools to help various departments change the way they work. Microsoft 365 is a set of productivity, security, and mobility cloud software bringing together Office 365, Windows 10, and enterprise mobility and security. It delivers a complete, intelligent solution that empowers employees to work together more securely and productively in today's challenging times. It helps deliver connected experiences that enable your team to flexibly work and collaborate across departments and agencies to deliver on the mission and be more effective with intelligence. Intelligence security and compliance that harness the power of artificial intelligence to help protect government and citizen data from threats, reduce compliance risks, and manage access to sensitive information. Integrated workflows enable your teams to create workflows aligned with policies and procedures to keep things moving forward effectively and seamlessly. It's built for diversity and new working styles. It brings people together seamlessly through modern tools built for diverse and inclusive work styles. Let's pick up the first pillar on driving effective collaboration through centralized communication and coordination. Let's start with the most widely accepted and tried tool across 50 plus state, central, and public sector enterprises, Teams. Teams is a chat based workspace that brings together chat, meetings, calling, and Office 365 all in one. And it's built on trust of Microsoft security and compliance that is crucial for today's government. Microsoft Teams delivers on four core promises to create a digital workspace for high performance teams. Communication is the first one. Microsoft Teams solves for communication needs of a diverse workforce. We will get to see how it does that. When it comes to collaboration, the deep Office integration enables today's multi-generational workforce to use the Office applications that they are familiar with and love: Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, SharePoint, even Power BI, right within the context of Teams. You can avoid email attachments and having to search for the latest version of document when you use Teams, because Team brings all the Office 365 services together so that you can easily share and co-author your files in one place. Thirdly, many of you use other services than Microsoft applications as well. We built Teams to be the hub for all services and tools your team uses on day-to-day basis. So you can customize Teams with tabs, connectors, bots to include third-party applications and services you need like GitHub, Trello, Jira. It is an extensible platform to enable building apps and to integrate with business processes. Fourth, Microsoft Teams comes with enterprise grade security, compliance, and manageability that you expect from Office 365, which customers tell us is a huge value to them. Microsoft Teams can help keep initiatives moving forward across programs with appropriate visibility with tools to streamline workflows. You can automate processes and workflows. Cross department collaboration can be challenging because it can require IT setting up team sites. Using team templates, you can predefine Teams channel, install applications, pin tabs, and quickly help focus on your project collaboration. Co-authoring with Office 365 applications like Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and SharePoint is integrated into your teams. Your staff can centralize agency documents. Team members can create, edit, and review documents at the same time. Documents can be reviewed, approved all in one place with no need to search for latest version or transfer edits from multiple versions or mailing them across for approvals and edits. Integration with apps like Microsoft Planner helps provide everyone work together visibility into blockers. You can assign tasks and track progress to facilitate reliable handoffs and align with rules and procedures in line with what your project or what your mission requires. Teams gives you better access to people and resources, helping you make smarter and faster decisions. You can enable collaboration in one central hub with tools needed to manage the project. You can integrate data and analytics with intelligence. With Microsoft Teams, you can optimize use of data through integration of Microsoft Power BI dashboards, which can help your team to take informed decisions much faster. You can extend your workforce, integrate agency specific applications into teams to have important tools in one single place. You can facilitate faster app development almost 10 times faster with our Power Platform, which is a low code, no code solution from Microsoft that enables creation of applications immediately and rapidly at time of use. Few areas there where Power Platform is very popularly getting used are in rapid crisis communication. Wherever we need to collect field data quickly and we need to provide the field team with a tool, an automated tool, Power Platform comes into play. Here are a few examples of what has been done in current times. Crisis, a numerous number of crisis communications app have got developed on Power Platform, and various state departments and emergency response teams are using it. We have also have created multiple solutions, right, where we will get to see in a real world example, which is here on our next slide, on how a state government has built a comprehensive and an active COVID-19 dashboard for state using Power BI. You will be amazed at the level of detail that they are capturing, something that I feel that every state or a municipality should replicate. On Power App, the point that I mentioned earlier, the municipal corporation of one of India's biggest metros has its surveillance mobile application based on Power Apps. The field workers are using this application to capture field data of individuals identified for home quarantine, their health statistics, close contact details, even GPS locations, and many things more. As we talk, another state is also trying to do something similar. To the second area, how can we enable connection from office or in field seamlessly? A new generation of worker expects the flexibility to collaborate and access material from almost anywhere. They want to prepare for briefings while in transit, follow office discussions during site visits to hospitals or to schools or to projects, or stay updated on emergency issues, whether out at a community meeting or at home or in a quarantine, as the case is today. Risk averse culture can slow down adoption of new technology. Most agencies understand the importance of these capabilities to drive better outcomes, but perceived security risks are concerns in moving ahead. Ironically, the same set of people unofficially use unmanaged and unsecure apps to discuss personal and official work. Limited access for remote and field worker delays administrative processes. If you always have to be at your desk to access data and information you need, it can really hinder the progress of your mission. I have worked with diverse generations in government with different backgrounds in technology and expectations from communications and collaboration tools. For example, Some people are comfortable reviewing over phones. Others prefer real-time collaboration and sharing. You need to match the expectation of these workforces with modern and easy to use tools while capturing all the vital information that the project creates. Rapid technology advancements require agility. Employees want applications that are easy to use and work across devices. They form their mobility expectations at work based on their personal experience with consumer applications. With Teams, you can help your employees stay connected with a consistent experience across devices. Employees can view, edit documents, and go on the go while keeping your data completely secure. We have many additional tools in Teams that can help drive efficiency in your day-to-day work. For example, shifts, bookings, etc. Shift makes the task of setting work schedules that in past was a rigid legacy experience into a very fluid experience for all. With shifts, first line managers will be able to create, update, distribute schedules for teams from the desktop and web apps. Broadcast open and unfilled shifts so that other employees can cover them from desktop and web apps. Add a shift from the mobile app. Accept or deny time off or shift changes from the mobile app. While the field members will be able to review this shift schedule from the mobile app, review requests and open shift information, request time off, shift swaps, or other shifts from mobile app, set availability for the day or specific hours to inform their managers as it relates to future shift scheduling purposes. You can also integrate your existing conference room equipment into Teams meeting with a little effort and investment. Now to the third part, securely share and protect sensitive information. The current data state is changing in government. Information is shared across more oftenly and widely than ever, and security concerns are very genuine and well founded. Getting the right people access to right information takes a considerable effort. Finding the balance between protection and productivity is also critical. Employees find their own personal collaboration tools, resulting in added vulnerability. This practice creates risk for the organization as shadow IT develops. Unmanaged mobile access can lead to potential loss of sensitive information. How can you help ensure greater privacy and security for your employee identities and projects no matter what device they are using? These are few questions that you should think about. Microsoft 365 can help with integrated tools to protect, manage, detect, and respond to external and internal threats. Using capabilities which are inbuilt in Office 365 and Windows 10, plus solutions provided in enterprise mobility and security, you can manage and secure information in the cloud and across devices. For example, Azure Information Protection lets you discover, classify, label, and protect data automatically through fully customizable policies that your IT team would like to define. This helps you maintain control if data is accidentally released as well. In this scenario, you can apply right-based permission so that only intended recipients can access and view the information even if it gets into wrong hands. As civil servants, you are expected to be trusted stewards of information to protect privacy of employee, mission, and citizens. However, that shouldn't prevent you from communicating with the right people you need to move things forward. So, you can set policies for communication. You can set policies to block and prevent sensitive information from being sent in private chats or channels either inside or outside the agency in Teams. Secure private channels allow you to customize which members of your agency or external agency in Teams can see conversations and file associated with that channel. With guest access, organizations that use Teams can restrict channel participation and access appropriately within a team to a subset of members while maintaining control over the organizational data. But it still lets you work with third-party vendors together as a team even when you are quarantined or are working remotely. Moving on, here is a summary of comprehensive security controls that can be enabled in remote communication and collaboration. A point to be noted here is that the entire data of Office 365 and Teams has its residency in our data centers in India. The Gartner article on tips for managing remote employees in April this year highlights that one of the key aspects of managing remote workflows is enabling your employees with right devices that goes beyond just a functional laptop. Talking specifically about the hardware, the device must support the need for mobility. Microsoft Surface comes in various form factors from two-in-ones to detachables to everyday laptops to suit every business need. They are lightweight, provide multiple ways to connect with long battery life of 10 plus hours and fast charging to enable your teams to work from anywhere and anytime. The government agencies also need high performance devices to run complex data queries to translate data into insights. Surface devices like Surface Books are powerhouses to run critical enterprise software and native custom apps on trusted Windows 10 Pro platform and can help multitask with powerful and latest processors. I hope I was able to bring in a bit of clarity on how we could move forward from here. We are in this together, so stay safe, stay healthy, and I look forward to working closely with you in coming times. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anish Dhawan, for offering the color to the conversation. Now, I would like to bring to your notice that the exhibition booth at the Expo Center is definitely worth a visit, and you should definitely check out the Microsoft booth for all the insights and data. So remember to explore, learn, and progress.